be done with the Bible? Because someone's going to explain this to me. Because how are you Christians using the Bible to prove the Bible?
What is it, the braids?
All right, let's see it.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with using the Bible to understand the historical life of Jesus and the history of the nation of Israel.
So already we're off to a bad start because we are already responding to a different concern from the concern expressed at the beginning of the video. Because this creator says there's nothing wrong with using the Bible to understand the life of Jesus or the history of Israel. And so what that's saying is there is historically accurate stuff in the Bible, and that is true. However, that was not the concern expressed at the beginning of the video. The concern expressed at the beginning of the video was for a very specific type of argument, using the Bible to prove the Bible. And this is a concern because it's a fallacy to say, oh, we can prove passage X is true or historical by leveraging passage Y as evidence or proof. But the concern is that that pretty much always just presupposes the historical accuracy, the veracity of passage Y. The concern is precisely for presupposing the veracity, the historical accuracy of other parts of the Bible, as well as their univocality. So that's a very specific, legitimate concern. And saying, let's look at the criteria of authenticity to establish that there is history in the Gospels, in the Bible, that's an entirely different argument that is unrelated to the concern expressed at the beginning of the video. And the rest of this video is also going to misrepresent the criteria of authenticity and what they can actually show about the historicity of the Gospels.
Those atheists and agnostic who think otherwise are woefully misinformed, but let's get into it.
Hello everyone, I am the Reconstructionist, reconstructing the Christian faith while preventing the spread of biblical misinformation and dogma. Reason over consensus.
That sounds like an apologetic alteration of something very familiar.
When judging their historical reliability, I would encourage the Reconstructionists to consider the criteria of authenticity. As Dr. Gary Habermas and many other scholars have noted, this criteria is used to determine whether or not an event actually happened.
The criteria of authenticity are not used to determine whether or not an event happened. They are used to determine the likelihood that an event did happen or that a saying does go back to the historical Jesus. They cannot determine that something didn't happen, but they also can't determine that something did. What they do is suggest that if condition X or Y obtains, it's more likely that an event happened, or it's more likely that the historical Jesus actually said this. It's about probabilities and likelihoods. It is not about determining whether or not an event happened.
You cannot hold these two statements to be true. One, I believe Jesus actually existed. And two, but you can't trust the Gospels to give you accurate information on it.
Yes, you absolutely can, and I think you absolutely should hold both of those statements to be accurate, because the overwhelming academic consensus about the existence of a historical Jesus is absolutely not based on just trusting the reliability of the information in the Gospels. It's based precisely on questioning and interrogating the reliability of that information. That's what the criteria of authenticity exist to facilitate. And a big point that this content creator doesn't understand, dogmatically rejects, or wants to make sure not to let you know about is that when you apply the criteria of authenticity across the Gospels, very, very little of it is likely to be authentic and historical. That's the biggest problem with this notion that because of the criteria of authenticity, you can just trust that the Gospels are reliable.
Now, class, for your recommended reading and homework, we're going to go with Trusting the New Testament by James Patrick Holden. It should do a great job of answering your questions about whether or not the New Testament has been corrupted.
J.P. Holding is a YouTube apologist who has absolutely no relevant training or expertise, no degrees in anything related to biblical studies, and that's a self-published book. He had to pay the publisher so that they would publish that book, which was not reviewed by any experts whatsoever. If you're interested in actual scholarship, there is this discussion of the criteria of authenticity by Stanley Porter, a Christian scholar who goes a little more conservatively than I would on a lot of these questions, but this book still has a lot of wonderful information. There's also The Historical Jesus in Context, a volume edited by Amy Jill Levine, Dale Allison Jr., and John Dominic Crossan. And then we have this forthcoming book, The Next Quest for the Historical Jesus, another edited volume, edited by James Crossley and Chris Keith. And the fit for this video has been the Spawn 200.